Ian, thanks a lot for joining us on
Great
ESC.
pleasure.
Now, it's quite one may say, a huge blow for Caster Semenya, especially when it comes to the issues around performance. She's had to really adhere and overcome certain obstacles, challenging, number one, her gender, challenging at one point her ability to even compete, saying that she's got an unfair advantage. And now this ruling by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, it almost appears as though it's another blow to her.
Absolutely, Faith. A gigantic day for the Semenya camp and a huge blow. I sense that we'll see her resilience emerge again. My understanding from the interview with Ross Tucker earlier with Jeremy is that she's got 3 different possible routes that she can take. The one is the legal route. The other one is taking medication, and the third one is to adjust the distance that she's running. So I think it's a watch and see time as the Semenya camp sees what their options are, but I think we'll see her resilience return, and she's just got a choice to make of where she's going to exercise that.
I mean, when it comes to the ruling itself and the verdict, it speaks about how oral contraceptives can be taken to adjust the testosterone levels, but then does that not have direct effects, especially on an athlete, who has not been on any form of or that specific medication, now to impose any form of medication that is a hormonal adjustment? Will it not impact her ability to even compete?
Faith, I'm going to comment as a layman, as I'm not a medical doctor in that sense, but I think playing around with one's testosterone levels is likely to impact her in many different ways. So that is a risk they take, and I understand that you would need to be on those for 6 months before competing. So that's going to work and play with your entire system. So there is a total risk that is encountered taking that route.
I mean, it's looking at those that are running 400, 800 meters, 400 and 800 meters, but what if she chooses to adjust to maybe like 1,500 meters in a sense? Will they have a direct impact in terms of her ability to perform?
Faith, my understanding it's up to a mile, 1,600 meters. So if my understanding is correct, you could run 3,000 or 5,000. So I guess that's what they're going to be looking at is because the Tokyo Olympics is just 18 months away. So it's a run against time right now.
But what does that do to somebody's psychological effect? And I know you speaking on the capacity of a high-performance coach. So somebody's psychological effect, especially ahead of any form of race or any form of competition, surely it must impact, because if they're going to adjust it to suit or to mitigate against this ruling in itself, and she decides to run 3,000, that has a direct impact.
It will have a huge impact. I think, and I obviously lean towards or have a bias towards my profession on the performance coaching. I think the real thread that we need to hold on to emerging out of the story is, yes, there's a scientific debate taking place, but how about her psychological, her emotional, and her social adjustments that she's made in the last decade? She has been extraordinarily resistant, and if she is able to regroup and decide what her path of action is, and if she can take the same approach that she's taken previously against incredible adversity, I'm excited to see what will unfold as she decides on her approach going forward.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the ability to actually adjust and the physicality that is required to adjust from, let's say, 1,500 meter to maybe a 3,000 meter kind of race, what impact will that have on the body?
So they're very different races, where she has a gold medalist at the 800. The 5,000 is very different, but it will be fascinating to see what emerges psychologically and in terms of her performance, because if you trace her story going back to her school days, where she was ridiculed about her gender, I believe that she was asked to strip down naked in sports change rooms to prove her gender, she's got an extraordinary resilience. So this is where they're going to have to look at various factors. Do they take a gamble on the testosterone levels and stay within her current expertise or distance, or do they move to a higher distance? So she's going to need a group of wise counselors around her as she takes that choice going forward.
I mean, you've said that you want to look specifically at the psychological impact that this would have on such an athlete. I mean, we're talking about overcoming obstacle by obstacle, but surely sometime or somehow, as a human being, now let's just take a humanistic approach to it. As a human being, you sit back and you go, why do I do this in the first place? I mean, as much as I may love to compete, as much as I may love being an athlete, but just the blows that have been dealt with just because of my passion, is it really worth it? do you think that as a normal human being who's got the right to say, actually, this is enough, would we see that in this case, given the amount of obstacles that have been put in her way?
Faith, I think you're pursuing a very legitimate line of what are her levels of mental and emotional fatigue, just hurdle after hurdle and blow after blow. I think she's fighting a bigger cause. I think there is her individual case. I think we need to remember as South Africans and Africans today that quite a number of female athletes fall into the same category. And I think the IAAF and others are navigating new frontiers in terms of sports legislation. So I think that she's not going to just be tapping into personal motivation, but a larger pool of motivation of what does this mean for similar labeled athletes going forward. So let's hope there's a regrouping and an emerging. I think she is in the dawn of at least the latter stages of her career. And let's see if she's got some surprises for us in Tokyo next year.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to the comeback. Everybody loves a comeback story, and everybody loves a good story, especially after serious adversity. And we'll leave our conversation there, but thanks so for joining us and shedding some light in terms of exactly what are we talking about here and getting some reaction following that ruling by the Court of Arbitration for Sports regarding Caster Semenya's testosterone levels. Obviously, a big fight ahead of the Semenya camp.